The silence was deafening, but it was in that silence that she finally heard her own voice. Some wounds are invisible. Some prisons have no bars. Some battles are fought in the quiet corners of our own homes, where love becomes control, and control becomes violence. For 15 years, she lived in a house that felt like a prison. Every word was monitored. Every smile had to be earned. Every breath felt borrowed. And when the bruises faded, the apologies came, followed by the blame. But sometimes the human spirit refuses to break. The day she realized she had forgotten the sound of her own laughter was the day everything changed. If you've ever felt lost in your own life, if you've ever wondered if it's too late to start over, this story is for you. Subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. You're not alone in this journey. Behind every story is a real person, someone who shared your pain. We've changed names and locations to protect identities, but what you're about to hear really happened. Elena Martinez, 45, had perfected the art of concealment. Each morning began with the same ritual, carefully applying concealer to purple marks on her upper arm, foundation to hide the evidence of her reality, and long sleeves, even in summer heat. Her bathroom mirror reflected not just her physical appearance, but the systematic erasure of who she once was. The kitchen routine was equally practiced. Richard's coffee in his world's best dad mug, served with the silence he demanded. When he criticized her clothing choice without looking up from his phone, calling her desperate and suggesting she looked pathetic at her age, Elena had learned not to react. The words hit like physical blows, but she'd been trained to absorb them without flinching. "You know I only say these things because I care about you, right?" Richard's voice would soften after each attack, the classic pattern of abuse, cruelty followed by false tenderness designed to keep her confused and compliant. Someone has to look out for you. Elena's 20-minute drive to the library represented her only daily freedom, a brief respite from the suffocating control of her home life. At work, her colleague Patricia became the first person in years to truly see her, noticing the long sleeves on hot days and the careful way Elena moved through the world. 5 years ago, I was married to a man who convinced me I was lucky he put up with me, Patricia revealed during a pivotal conversation. He never hit me, but he didn't have to. Words can be weapons, too. Her gentle observation that love doesn't make you afraid planted the first seed of recognition in Elena's mind. That afternoon, Elena found herself scrolling through old photos on her phone, searching for traces of who she used to be. At 28, laughing with her sister Grace at a family barbecue, her smile genuine and eyes bright. College photos showed her surrounded by art supplies, paint on her hands, pure joy radiating from her face as she held up a canvas. When did she stop painting? When did she stop being herself? Elena's tentative suggestion of dinner out triggered Richard's explosive anger. His accusations that she was ashamed of their home, that she wanted to flirt with waiters, that she was trying to spend money they didn't have, escalated until he struck her across the face. The slap was followed immediately by his tears and apologies, the manipulation cycle completing itself. "You push me sometimes," he whispered, pulling her into an embrace she was too numb to resist. "I love you so much it scares me. That's why I get crazy. You understand, don't you?" That night, lying beside her sleeping abuser, Elena found an old birthday card in her nightstand drawer. Her own handwriting stared back at her. "Never let anyone erase who you are." The message felt like communication from a ghost, the ghost of who she used to be. Elena's decision to record Richard's abuse marked her first act of rebellion in 15 years. Using a voice recording app on her phone, she captured his verbal assaults, his cruel words followed by gentle manipulation, the cycle of abuse that had trapped her for so long. When she listened to the recording later, wearing headphones in the bathroom, she heard what others would hear. her own voice small and defeated, his alternating between cruelty and false love. For the first time, she had evidence of her reality. The brief reconnection with her sister Grace, whom Richard had systematically isolated her from, provided another crack in the wall of control. Grace's memories of Elena as an artist, as someone with dreams and ambitions, reminded her of the woman she'd been before Richard convinced her she needed him to survive. Richard's discovery of the recording app led to increased surveillance and control. He deleted the evidence, issued threats about consequences if she ever recorded him again, and reminded her that his love has limits. The isolation became suffocating as he monitored her every movement, questioned every minute away from home. But something fundamental had shifted. Elena began taking different routes to work, stopping at a small park to think and write in a hidden notebook, not about Richard, but about herself, about the woman she used to be. She made the terrifying decision to call Dr. Morrison, a therapist whose card Patricia had given her. "That's the bravest thing you can say," when Elena whispered, "I think I need help." Dr. Morrison's words became Elena's lifeline. "This is not your fault." For the first time in 15 years, someone believed her, validated her experience, and explained the cycle of abuse that had trapped her. Love doesn't hurt Elena. Love doesn't control. Love doesn't make you afraid to speak, the therapist explained, helping Elena understand that her experiences weren't signs of personal failure, but symptoms of systematic abuse. When Richard discovered Elena's hidden notebook and her therapy sessions, his explosion was immediate and terrifying. He threw the notebook across the room, shook her violently, and began systematically destroying her personal belongings, photos, books, her mother's jewelry box, throwing them into garbage bags. "Everything you are belongs to me," he declared, his mask completely dropped. Elena's quiet no in response to Richard's destruction marked the beginning of her liberation. When she stood up to him, stating that those were her belongings, that their house was our house, Richard's response was swift: "Get out." For the first time in 15 years, Elena chose herself. She packed a small bag and drove to Grace's house, leaving behind not just Richard, but the life she'd built around surviving him. Richard immediately began poisoning their adult children against her, telling Sophie and James that their mother had abandoned the family, was having a breakdown, was being influenced by toxic people. The children, conditioned by years of Richard's manipulation, initially sided with their father. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Richard hired expensive lawyers and painted Elena as unstable, freezing their joint accounts and leaving her with only her small library salary. She moved into a tiny studio apartment, experiencing both the terror and exhilaration of complete freedom for decades. The loneliness was crushing, but Elena threw herself into therapy and rediscovered her passion for art. Finding old watercolor paints in a forgotten purse, she began painting again after 20 years, working until 3 in the morning, lost in the pure joy of creation. Her colleagues at the library rallied around her, organizing funds for legal expenses and reminding her of her worth. Patricia's observation that Elena seemed stronger was met with Elena's honest response: "I don't feel stronger. I feel terrified most of the time." Patricia's reply became another cornerstone of Elena's healing. That's what courage is, being terrified and doing it anyway. The breakthrough with her children came when James witnessed Richard's true nature during a legal deposition, seeing his father scream at his lawyer and threaten to ruin her career. The recognition that he'd watched Richard treat Elena the same way his entire life led to James reaching out to his mother. "I should have protected you, James," Elena replied, beginning the process of rebuilding their relationship. Elena's return to art became both personal therapy and public service. Her paintings, raw, emotional canvases filled with dark colors breaking into light, caged birds taking flight, women turning their faces toward the sun, told the story of survival and transformation. A small showing at the Daily Grind Cafe led to her first sale and a job offer from the owner, Michael Chen. "This is special," she said of her work, offering her an opportunity to curate art shows and teach painting classes. The validation of strangers appreciating her art, of earning money from her creativity, gave her a pride she hadn't experienced in decades. Not the desperate need for approval she'd lived with for years, but genuine pride in her own creation. 2 years after leaving Richard, Elena had transformed her pain into purpose. The Breaking Free Art Therapy program served dozens of women each month, growing from a small cafe showing into a non-profit organization funded by the state and donations. Her blog reached thousands of women worldwide, offering hope and practical guidance to those trapped in similar situations. When women like Sarah Williams, 52 years old, married for 28 years with grandchildren, came to her believing it was too late to start over, Elena shared the truth she'd learned. "We're not starting over, we're continuing. The woman you were before him, she's still there. She's just been waiting for you to remember her name, recall her dreams, and reclaim her voice." 3 years after leaving Richard, Elena stood in her expanded studio, watching new students discover their own creative voices. Sophie had not only forgiven her, but asked her to walk her down the aisle, saying Elena had taught her what strength looks like. James was engaged to a strong, independent social worker who understood the importance of Elena's mission. Elena's relationship with Michael Chen had grown slowly and healthily, built on mutual respect rather than control. She marveled at how different love felt when it was genuine, supportive rather than suffocating, encouraging rather than diminishing. When Richard occasionally sent manipulative messages, Elena simply deleted them without response. She'd learned that the best revenge against someone who tried to make you small was to live a big, beautiful, meaningful life. Elena's story demonstrates that it's never too late to reclaim your life. At 45, she walked away from everything familiar to rediscover who she was beneath years of abuse and control. Her journey from victim to survivor to advocate shows that healing is possible.